The Intergalactic Youth Integration Station had seen its share of disasters. There was the incident with the methane-breathing younglings who'd accidentally vented atmosphere into the oxygen wing. The time a group of gelatinous children had clogged every drain on level 12. That memorable occasion when someone thought it would be educational to let the phosphorescent spawn practice their bioluminescence during nap time, resulting in what the incident report diplomatically called mass sleep disruption and minor retinal damage. But this, Liam thought as he watched instructor Pixoth literally vibrate with panic, might actually top the list. "They're gone!" Pixoth's translator crackled with the intensity of their distress, their 6 limbs gesticulating wildly enough to knock over a stack of nutrition trays. The insectoid's compound eyes had taken on a distinctly panicked sheen, reflecting the cafeteria's overhead lights in a dizzying kaleidoscope. 3 Kraix cubs, missing, unaccounted for, vanished during morning meal service. Do you understand what this means? Liam understood perfectly well what it meant. It meant that somewhere on this station, 3 kids were probably hiding, because they'd gotten scared or overwhelmed or just needed a break from being stared at like they were loaded weapons. It meant that approximately 200 adult aliens were about to lose their collective minds over the galaxy's most overregulated species. The Kraix, apex predators from the outer terminus worlds, feline in build, lethal in reputation, and subject to more supervision protocols than the station's actual weapons storage. Their cubs couldn't sneeze without filing an incident report. "I understand that we're about to watch a lot of very intelligent beings make complete fools of themselves," Liam said, watching the cafeteria descend into chaos. "Right on schedule, too. Look, there goes the emergency lighting." Red warning lights began pulsing throughout the massive dining hall. The few remaining younglings from breakfast service started crying or making their species-equivalent distress sounds. A Quellan child, barely knee-high and covered in soft purple fur, wrapped itself around the nearest adult's leg and refused to let go. "This is not the time for your human sarcasm." Pixoth's antennae were doing something that probably indicated an impending nervous breakdown in insectoid body language. The Kraix monitoring protocol clearly states that all cubs must maintain visual contact with no fewer than 2 supervisors at all times. The diplomatic ramifications alone are going to be nothing compared to the psychological ramifications of treating children like they're radioactive, Liam finished. But Pixoth wasn't listening anymore. They were already skittering toward the communication panel, all 6 limbs moving in that peculiar coordinated scuttle that still looked unsettling even after 8 months on station. The cafeteria itself was a monument to optimistic design philosophy. Somebody had decided that a space large enough to hold 300 younglings from 80 different species, all eating at once, was a good idea. The architects had even included cheerful murals on the walls, depicting various alien children holding hands, tentacles, pseudopods, or whatever appendages they possessed. It was meant to inspire unity. Right now, it inspired a headache. Liam moved through the chaos with the calm of someone who'd spent 6 years wrangling human 5-year-olds in Houston's most underfunded public schools. Nothing on this station scared him. Not the methane breathers, not the hive-mind juveniles, and certainly not 3 Kraix cubs who probably just wanted to eat breakfast without being monitored like they were on death row. The cubs, Ukar, Milsha, and Oxven, ages equivalent to human 6, 5, and 4 respectively, though Kraix development didn't map neatly onto human standards. Ukar was the cautious one, always checking with adults before doing anything. Milsha talked constantly through her translator, asking questions about everything. Oxven barely spoke at all, but those huge golden eyes missed nothing. They'd arrived at the station 2 months ago, part of the Kraix species' attempt to integrate into the larger galactic community. A noble effort that immediately crashed into the brick wall of everyone else's terror. Because the Kraix looked like what they were: predators. Sleek fur, retractable claws, teeth designed for tearing meat. The fact that they were also intelligent, cultured, and deeply empathetic got lost somewhere between apex predator and, oh God, it has fangs. Hence the protocols, the monitoring, the special feeding times when other species' younglings weren't present, the separate play areas, the careful supervision that probably felt an awful lot like imprisonment if you were 4 years old and just wanted to play. Liam had been pushing back against these restrictions since day one. He'd been overruled by station administration, Pixoth, and basically everyone else who thought safety first meant assume the worst. Now 3 scared kids were missing, and everyone's nightmare scenario was playing out exactly as predicted. Except Liam was willing to bet his entire stockpile of decent coffee that the cubs weren't doing anything dangerous. They were hiding. Probably together, definitely scared, and almost certainly confused about why finding them required station-wide emergency protocols. "Security has been notified," Pixoth announced, their voice hitting frequencies that made Liam's teeth ache. "All personnel are conducting systematic searches of their sectors. The cubs were last seen at 0600 hours during morning meal distribution. Current time is 0638. That's 38 minutes unaccounted for. 38 minutes. Liam had lost track of human kindergarteners for longer than that and found them napping in coat closets or building elaborate block towers in bathroom stalls. Kids were kids, regardless of how many teeth they had. "Has anyone checked under the tables?" Liam asked. Pixoth's antennae stopped their frantic waving. "Under the tables? That would be undignified, inappropriate for a proper search protocol." "Right, because dignity is what we're concerned about when looking for missing children." Liam was already moving toward the dining area, stepping over scattered nutrition trays and abandoned eating utensils. The cafeteria used long, low tables to accommodate species of various heights. Plenty of space underneath for small bodies to squeeze into. But he didn't find them there. Not under any of the 20 tables in the main dining area. Not in the kitchen storage closets, though he did startle Tom, the human nutrition coordinator, who was conducting his own search through the cooling units. "Any luck?" Tom asked, his dark hair disheveled from sticking his head into various cabinets. "Not yet. You?" "Nothing. But Liam, listen. I've been reviewing the cubs' meal intake logs." Tom pulled up a data pad, his expression troubled. "They've been eating less than half their recommended caloric intake for the past 3 weeks. I flagged it for Pixoth, but they said Kraix's appetite varies seasonally and not to worry." That was interesting, and potentially relevant. Liam filed it away for later consideration. The search continued. Security footage was reviewed, showing nothing useful. The cubs had been present at breakfast, had received their meal portions at the distribution line, and then nothing. The camera angles didn't cover every corner of the cafeteria. Budget constraints meant surveillance had gaps. Various staff members started reporting sightings. The cubs were seen in the gymnasium. No, wait. That was a stack of exercise equipment. Someone spotted them in the hydroponics bay. False alarm, just shadows from the grow lights. Possibly in the waste reclamation sector. Definitely not. That had been a cleaning servitor. Liam watched the panic compound, adults literally running through corridors, and couldn't help thinking about how ridiculous this would look from the outside. 3 children had wandered off during breakfast, and the response was somewhere between escaped convicts and containment breach. Pixoth appeared beside him, breathing hard, despite not technically having lungs. We must expand the search to adjacent sectors. If they've accessed the ventilation systems, they're cubs, not special operations, Liam interrupted. And they've been here 2 months. Where do the kids on this station go when they want to be alone? When they're overwhelmed or scared or just need a minute? The designated quiet zones, the meditation chambers, the species-appropriate rest areas? The places adults tell them to go? Sure. Liam shook his head. I'm asking where kids actually go, when they don't want to be found. Pixoth's compound eyes somehow managed to convey complete bafflement. I don't understand the distinction. Of course they didn't. Pixoth was brilliant at protocol, exceptional at organization, and absolutely hopeless at understanding that younglings didn't think like miniature adults. They thought like younglings, which meant illogical hiding spots, emotional reasoning, and decisions that made perfect sense if you were 3 feet tall and scared. Liam closed his eyes, thinking. If he were a Kraix's cub on this station, monitored constantly, separated from other children, treated like a threat, where would he go? Somewhere familiar. Somewhere that felt safe, even if it wasn't hidden. Somewhere that, paradoxically, nobody would think to look because it was too obvious. His eyes snapped open. I know where they are. He was already moving, heading back toward the cafeteria, while Pixoth scrambled to follow, demanding explanations. Liam ignored them, his mind fitting pieces together. The reduced food intake, the missing cubs, the 38 minutes of unaccounted time that lined up perfectly with the end of breakfast service and the cafeteria emptying out. The dining hall was deserted now, all the other younglings evacuated during the search. Emergency lighting still pulsed red, casting strange shadows across those optimistic murals. Liam walked slowly through the space, scanning. There, under the center table in the main dining area, a slight movement, barely visible in the pulsing light. A flash of golden eyes reflecting the red glow. Liam crouched down, getting low enough to see underneath properly. 3 small Kraix cubs huddled together in the shadows, their dark fur blending with the gloom. They froze when they saw him, and in that moment, Liam felt something in his chest crack a little. They looked terrified. Not dangerous, not threatening, just scared. And in the middle of their small huddle, clutched in Ukar's careful paws, was a single granola bar, the kind distributed at breakfast. 1 bar split into 3 pieces. They'd been sharing it, taking turns, each cub taking the smallest possible bite, before passing it to the next. Hey, Liam said softly, not moving closer. Been looking for you 3. Mind if I join you under there? He didn't wait for permission, just sat down and scooted backward until he was under the table with them. It was cramped, uncomfortable, and probably looked completely absurd from the outside. Perfect. 3 pairs of golden eyes watched him warily. Milsha's translator flickered to life first. We did not mean to cause trouble. I know, Liam said. You're not in trouble. Everyone was just worried when they couldn't find you. Worried we would hurt someone, Ukar said quietly, his voice carrying that careful control that broke Liam's heart. A 6-year-old shouldn't have to sound that controlled. Maybe some people worried about that, Liam admitted, because lying to kids was pointless. But I was just worried about you. So was Tom. So were a lot of people. We wanted to make sure you were okay. Oxven, the youngest, made a small sound. His translator took a moment to process. We were hungry. Liam looked at the carefully rationed granola bar. At 3 cubs who could have taken multiple servings during breakfast, but had taken one. One bar between 3 growing predators who needed probably 5 times that much food. "Why didn't you get more food at breakfast?" he asked gently. The cubs exchanged glances, communicating in that wordless way younglings did across species barriers. Finally, Milsha spoke. "There were many people. The station must have limited food. We did not want to take too much." And there it was. The missing piece that made everything make terrible, perfect sense. Liam felt that familiar teacher sense kick in, the one that told him when a situation was about more than it appeared on the surface. 3 cubs rationing a single granola bar because they thought the station had limited food. The crowded cafeteria interpreted not as abundance, but as scarcity. The careful, precise way they were sharing, each taking microscopically small bites. This wasn't just kids being picky eaters. This was cultural. "Okay," Liam said, keeping his voice calm and even. "I need you 3 to stay right here for just a minute. Don't move. Don't panic. I'm going to stick my head out and tell everyone you're safe, and then we're going to have a conversation about food on this station. Sound good?" Ukar's ears flattened slightly. A gesture Liam had learned meant uncertainty. "Will we be punished?" "For what? Being hungry?" Liam snorted. "No, absolutely not. Nobody's getting punished." He extracted himself from under the table with significantly less grace than he'd entered, his knees popping in protest. 32 years old and already making old man noises. Teaching really did age you. Pixoth was standing approximately 10 feet away, still vibrating with anxiety, surrounded by what appeared to be half the station's security team. All of them armed, all of them looking way too intense for a situation involving missing children. "Stand down," Liam said flatly. "All of you. Put the weapons away. Turn off the emergency lighting and give me some space." "Are they?" Pixoth started. "They're fine. They're under the table. They're scared, they're hungry, and the absolute last thing they need right now is a bunch of armed adults surrounding them like they're hostages in a standoff." Liam's voice had taken on the edge he usually reserved for particularly stubborn administrators. "So everyone not directly involved in childcare needs to leave. Now." To their credit, most of the security team looked relieved. They holstered their weapons and filed out, murmuring among themselves. Liam caught fragments of conversation. "Just kids. Told you it wasn't a threat situation. Complete overreaction." Yeah, complete overreaction that had been built into every protocol on this station regarding Kraix's cubs. Pixoth remained, their antennae still twitching nervously. "I should contact the Kraix liaison immediately. Protocol requires—" "Protocol can wait 5 minutes while I make sure these kids are actually okay," Liam interrupted. "And while we're at it, we need to talk about why 3 younglings thought they needed to ration food on a station that literally has excess nutrition capacity." "Excess. We maintain appropriate reserves, but I wouldn't characterize—" "Pixoth." Liam turned to face them fully. "We throw away more food every day than those 3 cubs have been eating in a week. Tom showed me the intake logs. They're not eating enough because they think we don't have enough. And nobody noticed because everyone was too busy making sure they didn't bite anyone to notice they were going hungry." That finally seemed to penetrate. Pixoth's compound eyes shifted through several colors Liam didn't have names for. "But food is freely available. The distribution system provides adequate—" "Adequate by whose standards?" Liam gestured toward the table, where 3 small bodies were still huddled in shadow. "Look, I don't know everything about Kraix's culture, but I know enough about kids to recognize when they're operating under rules we don't understand. So instead of assuming, maybe we should ask." He didn't wait for Pixoth's response, just turned back to the table and crouched down again. "Hey, you three. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need honest answers. You're not in trouble, no matter what you say. Okay?" 3 small nods. "On your home world, how does food work? When there's a big group eating together, how do you decide who gets what?" Silence for a moment. Then Milsha's translator crackled to life. "The youngest eat first, then the growing cubs, then the adults. Everyone takes only what they need, so there is enough for all. And if there isn't enough for everyone, then we share," Ukar said, his voice carrying a note of pride. "No one goes without. It is the first teaching. Share what you have, take only what you need. Protect the weak." Oxven nodded solemnly, still clutching his portion of the granola bar like it was precious. "Mother says it is what makes us civilized. Not our claws, not our teeth, our willingness to share." Liam closed his eyes briefly. Of course. Of course, the species everyone treated like dangerous animals had cultural values centered around communal support and resource sharing. The irony was so thick you could serve it for dinner. "That's beautiful," he said honestly. "That's a really good way to live. But here's the thing about this station. We have enough food. More than enough. The cafeteria being crowded doesn't mean we're running out. It just means a lot of people are eating at the same time." Milsha's ears perked up, a gesture of confusion. But so many beings in one place, all needing nutrition, the resources must be strained. "They're not. I promise you, they're not." Liam shifted position, getting more comfortable. "This station gets supply deliveries every 3 days. We have storage capacity for 6 months of food. We track waste, and trust me, we waste more than we should. You 3 could eat 10 times what you're eating now, and we'd still have plenty." The cubs looked at each other, communicating in that silent way again. Liam could practically see them trying to reconcile this information with what they knew, what made sense in their world. "Then why," Ukar said slowly, "do we eat separately from the other younglings? If there is enough food, why are we not permitted to eat with them?" And there was the real question, wasn't it? The one that cut straight through to the rotten core of the station's protocols. "Because," Liam said, choosing his words carefully, "the adults on this station are scared of your species. Not of you 3 specifically, but of what you represent. Predators. They see your claws and your teeth, and they forget to see the rest of you." "We would not hurt the other cubs," Milsha said, her voice small. "We know we are stronger. We are always careful." "I know you are. I've watched you 3. You're more careful than any younglings I've ever supervised, and I've worked with human kids who would tackle each other for fun." Liam smiled, trying to lighten the moment. "But the adults here, they're working from fear. And fear makes people stupid. It makes them create protocols that don't make sense. It makes them treat children like threats." Oxven's voice was barely a whisper through his translator. "Are we threats?" "No." Liam said it firmly, with absolute conviction. "You're kids. You're kids who are trying really hard to follow rules you don't fully understand, in a place that treats you like you're dangerous. And that's not fair. And it's not right. And I'm going to do something about it." Pixoth made a noise behind him, probably objecting to unauthorized promises, but Liam ignored them. He was on a roll now, pieces falling into place in his mind. "Here's what's going to happen," he continued. "We're going to get you 3 out from under this table. We're going to get you real food, as much as you want. And then we're going to have a station-wide conversation about these protocols because they're hurting you, and that's unacceptable. But the rules, Ukar started, are made by adults who are supposed to be taking care of you, Liam finished. And if the rules are making you hide under tables and ration food, then the rules are wrong. Simple as that. He extended his hand, palm up, non-threatening. What do you say? Ready to come out? More silent communication between the cubs. Then, slowly, Uktar placed his paw in Liam's hand. The claws were retracted, the paw pads soft and warm. Milsha followed, then Oxven, each of them touching Liam's hand like they were testing whether this was real, whether they were truly safe. Liam helped them crawl out from under the table one by one. In the cafeteria's normal lighting, they looked impossibly small. Uktar barely came up to Liam's waist. Milsha and Oxven were even smaller, all huge eyes and fluffy fur that hadn't yet grown into the sleek adult coat. They looked like kittens, adorable, slightly awkward kittens who happened to have impressive teeth. Pixoth approached cautiously, their antennae doing complicated things. I must file a report. The Kraix liaison will need to be informed. The protocols state, "The protocols can wait until after breakfast," Liam said firmly. "Tom, you still here?" The nutrition coordinator emerged from the kitchen area, where he'd apparently been watching the whole scene unfold. "Yeah, I'm here. These three need real food. What have we got that works for Kraix's dietary requirements?" Tom's face brightened. He'd been almost as frustrated as Liam with the cubs' restricted feeding schedule. "Oh, I've got options. We have that protein synthesis the traders brought in last week, some of the Terran beef substitute, and I've been experimenting with a nutrient blend that—" "Give them choices," Liam interrupted. "Let them pick what they want. And Tom, don't hold back on portions." Within minutes, the kitchen had transformed into something resembling a feast. Tom brought out dish after dish, explaining each option to the cubs, letting them smell and examine before deciding. Their eyes got progressively wider with each new offering. "This is all for us?" Milsha asked, her translator catching the disbelief in her voice. "This is all for you," Tom confirmed. "And if you don't like something, we'll find something else. And if you're still hungry after this, we'll make more. That's how it works here. Or at least, that's how it should work." The cubs ate slowly at first, still cautious, still testing boundaries. But gradually, as it became clear that no one was going to stop them or judge them or ration their portions, they relaxed. Uktar tried the protein synthesis and made a pleased chirping sound. Milsha declared the beef substitute acceptable in the most dignified way possible. Oxven, the quiet one, simply ate with focused intensity, like he was making up for lost time, which, Liam realized, he probably was. Pixoth watched the whole thing with what might have been dawning horror or understanding. With insectoid expressions, it was hard to tell. "They were hungry," Pixoth said finally. "They have been hungry for weeks, and we did not see it." "You were too busy watching for threats to see the actual children," Liam said, not unkindly. "It happens, but now we know, and now we fix it. The protocols need to change, immediately." Liam crossed his arms. "Look at them, Pixoth. Really look. Do they look dangerous to you?" Three small cubs, eating breakfast with the kind of careful gratitude that came from not knowing when your next meal would be guaranteed. 3 children who had been so worried about burdening the station that they'd rationed a single granola bar between them. 3 younglings who'd been failed by every adult charged with their care. No, Pixoth admitted quietly. They do not look dangerous. They look like younglings who need better supervision than we have been providing. Then let's provide it, Liam said. The cafeteria had become an impromptu conference room, which was probably against 12 different station regulations, but Liam had stopped caring about regulations approximately 40 minutes ago. Tom had pulled up chairs around one of the longer tables. The cubs sat together on one side, still eating, though more slowly now, their initial hunger satisfied. Liam and Pixoth occupied the other side, with Tom leaning against the counter nearby, datapad in hand. "Okay," Liam said, addressing the cubs directly. "I need to understand something about your world. You said everyone shares, and no one takes more than they need. What happens when there's plenty? When resources aren't scarce?" The three cubs exchanged glances again, that silent conversation happening in ear twitches and subtle shifts of posture. "There is no time of plenty," Ukar said finally. "There is enough, or there is not enough. If there is enough, you prepare for when there will not be enough." "Your world has seasonal scarcity?" Tom asked, his fingers already moving across his datapad. "That would explain the caloric reduction patterns I've been seeing." "The cold season," Milsha explained. "When the cold season comes, prey animals migrate or hibernate. Plants die. Water freezes. We must have stores prepared, or the weak will perish. It is why we learn to share early. A cub who cannot share will not survive to adulthood." Oxven nodded seriously. "Mother says the cold season teaches us to be better than our instincts. Instinct says, eat everything now. Wisdom says, save for tomorrow." Liam felt something click into place in his understanding. These cubs hadn't been operating from fear or confusion. They'd been operating from deeply ingrained survival programming. Seeing a crowded cafeteria, they'd instinctively shifted into scarcity mode. Ration. Conserve. Make sure everyone gets something, even if it means you go without. "But this station doesn't have seasons," Liam said gently. "The food supply here is constant. Artificial, but constant. You don't need to prepare for scarcity because it doesn't come." "We understand the words," Ukar said slowly, "but it is difficult to believe. To know something here." He tapped his head. "But not here." He placed a paw over his chest. "Yeah," Liam said. "That makes sense. You're working against instinct. That's hard." Pixoth's antennae had stopped their anxious twitching. They were studying the cubs with what looked like genuine curiosity now, rather than fear. "I must admit, I had not considered the cultural context. The Kraix liaison provided information about dietary requirements and safety protocols, but not about resource-sharing traditions." "Because nobody asked," Liam said, unable to keep the edge entirely out of his voice. "Everyone was too focused on what the cubs might do to think about who they actually are." "That is regrettable." Pixoth managed to convey genuine shame despite the limitations of their translator. "We have failed in our duty to understand those in our care." Milsha's ears perked up. "You did not fail. You did not know. Not knowing is not the same as not caring." The simple generosity of that statement, coming from a child who'd been going hungry because of administrative oversight, made Liam's throat tight. "That's very kind of you to say," Pixoth replied. "But Liam is correct. We should have asked. We should have sought to understand, rather than simply imposing protocols." "The protocols exist for safety," Ukar said carefully. "We are predators. Other species fear us. This is reasonable." "No," Liam said firmly. "It's not reasonable. You know what's reasonable? Treating children like children. getting to know individuals instead of making assumptions based on species. The protocols weren't keeping anyone safe. They were just making you feel like monsters. The cafeteria fell silent. Oxven's translator finally spoke, his voice barely audible. Sometimes we do feel like monsters. Liam had to take a moment. Breathe. Remember that losing his temper wouldn't help anyone, even if he wanted to find whoever designed these protocols and introduce them to some human concepts about appropriate childcare. Listen to me, he said, looking at each cub in turn. All three of you. You are not monsters. You're children who happen to belong to a predator species. That's biology. It doesn't define who you are as people. The fact that you've been sharing your rations with other younglings, that's who you are. Pixoth's compound eyes shifted colors rapidly. Sharing their rations? With whom? We were going to mention that, Tom said from his position by the counter. While you were dealing with the search, I pulled more logs. The cubs have been accessing the cafeteria during off hours, taking small amounts of food from the unrestricted stores. I thought maybe they were just hungry, but the quantities didn't make sense. They were taking food and redistributing it. The little ones get scared at night, Milsha explained. Some of them cry. They miss their families. We would bring them small snacks, nothing large, just enough to comfort. Lin cries every night for his home world, Oxven added. The purple one. He is very small. We would bring him sweet things. They helped him sleep. You've been running a mutual aid network, Liam said, torn between laughing and crying. You three have been making sure the younger kids on this station are fed and comforted, while going hungry yourselves, because you thought resources were scarce. It is what you do, Ukar said, simply. The strong help the weak, the old help the young. This is the way. Tom was typing furiously on his datapad. I need to pull security footage. If this has been going on for weeks, there should be records. Do it, Pixoth said. Their voice had changed, taking on a quality Liam hadn't heard before. Determination, maybe, or possibly anger at themselves. I want to see everything, every instance, every time these cubs were acting with compassion while we were treating them like threats. The footage, when Tom pulled it up, was damning. There was Ukar carefully portioning out dried fruit and leaving it outside the door of the junior dormitory. Milsha sharing her own meal supplement with a Quellan child who was crying in a corner. Oxven sitting quietly with a gelatinous youngling who couldn't eat solid food, just keeping them company during a distress episode. Week after week of small kindnesses. Minor violations of protocol in service of something larger. 3 cubs who'd been taught that the strong protect the weak, living that teaching in an environment that saw them only as danger. The dangerous predators, Liam said quietly, have been the most compassionate younglings on this station. Anyone want to tell me again why the protocols are necessary? Pixoth stood abruptly, all 6 limbs moving with purpose. They are not. The protocols, as currently structured, are harmful and will be revised immediately. I will convene an emergency session with station administration. You'll face resistance, Liam warned. Then I will overcome it. Pixoth's antennae were rigid now, a posture Liam recognized as resolve. These younglings deserve better. All younglings deserve better. If the protocols prioritize theoretical danger over actual well-being, then the protocols are worse than useless. They are actively damaging. Instructor Pixoth? Milsha's voice was small. Will we still be able to help the little ones, even if the protocols change? Yes, Pixoth said immediately. though perhaps we can arrange for you to do so without violating station regulations, and with adequate nutrition for yourselves." "That would be acceptable," Ukar said gravely. Liam watched the exchange and felt something unwind in his chest. Maybe this place could be better. Maybe these cubs wouldn't have to spend the rest of their time here being treated like loaded weapons. Maybe other younglings could benefit from their compassion instead of being protected from their presence. Maybe, just maybe, adults could learn to be better. The emergency administrative session was scheduled for that afternoon, which gave Liam exactly enough time to prepare his argument and not nearly enough time to soften his anger. He'd spent the intervening hours documenting everything: the food intake logs, the security footage of the Cubs' nighttime kindness missions, the testimony of 3 children who'd been systematically failed by institutional fear. The conference room was packed. Station Administrator Kelvox, a towering crystalline being whose species communicated partially through light refraction, occupied the head of the table. Various department supervisors filled the remaining seats, representing every major operational area of the station. Pixoth sat to Liam's right, their antennae constantly moving in what he'd learned was their species' equivalent of nervous preparation. "This emergency session," Kelvox began, their voice resonating through the room's translation matrix, "has been called to address the incident involving 3 Kraix cubs during morning meal service. Instructor Pixoth, you have the floor." Pixoth stood, their limbs steady despite their obvious nerves. "The incident this morning revealed systemic failures in our approach to Kraix integration. The cubs were not missing due to misbehavior or danger, but because they were hungry and frightened. Our protocols prioritized surveillance over welfare, resulting in 3 younglings rationing a single food item while believing station resources were scarce." Murmurs rippled through the assembled administrators. Kelvox's crystalline structure shifted colors, processing this information. "Additionally," Pixoth continued, "investigation revealed that these cubs have been supplementing nutrition for other younglings station-wide for at least 6 weeks. The dangerous predators we have been monitoring so intensely have been operating an informal care network for the most vulnerable children on this station." Liam activated the display screen, bringing up the security footage. The room fell silent as they watched Ukar leaving food outside dormitory doors, Milsha comforting a crying Quellan child, Oxven sitting vigil with a distressed youngling who couldn't communicate verbally. "These are not threats," Liam said, his voice cutting through the silence. "These are children who've been taught that strength means protecting others, and who've been living that teaching despite being treated like criminals. While we were watching them for signs of violence, they were taking care of younglings we'd overlooked." "The protocols exist for legitimate reasons," one of the security supervisors objected. "Kraix are apex predators. Their physical capabilities are irrelevant to their character," Liam interrupted. "Physical capability doesn't equal dangerous intent. These cubs are stronger than many younglings on this station, yes. They're also more careful, more considerate, and more community-minded than most adults I know. The diplomatic considerations are being used as an excuse to perpetuate discrimination," Pixoth said firmly. "I have reviewed the Kraix integration agreements. Nothing in them requires separate feeding schedules or constant surveillance. We implemented those measures based on fear, not necessity." Kelvox's structure pulsed with light, a sign of deep consideration in their species. "What are you proposing?" "Revised protocols," Pixoth said. "The cubs should be integrated into standard meal times with other younglings. Supervision should match what we provide for any species with potentially dangerous capabilities, which, frankly, includes most species on this station. We should establish mentorship opportunities that utilize their compassionate nature rather than suppressing it. We propose a trial period, Liam added. 4 weeks. Modified protocols, integrated activities, actual interaction with other younglings under normal supervision. At the end of 4 weeks, we assess based on actual outcomes rather than hypothetical fears. And if incidents occur, then we address them individually, like we do with every other species, Liam said. When the methane breathers vented atmosphere, we didn't create station-wide protocols treating all methane breathers as hazards. We taught them proper safety procedures. When the gelatinous younglings clogged the drains, we didn't segregate them. We installed better filtration. The Kraix cubs deserve the same consideration. The room erupted into discussion. Arguments for and against, concerns about liability, questions about implementation. Liam let them talk, watching Kelvox's crystalline structure shift through various colors as they processed input from multiple sources. Finally, the administrator raised one translucent appendage, and the room quieted. "The trial period is approved," Kelvox said. 4 weeks. Modified protocols as proposed. However, I want daily reports on integration progress. Any incidents will be thoroughly reviewed. "Understood," Pixoth said. "And Liam?" Kelvox's structure pulsed in a way that might have been amusement. "Try not to make a habit of countermanding station-wide emergency protocols. It sets a concerning precedent." "I'll do my best," Liam said, not bothering to hide his smile, "as long as the protocols start making sense." The changes began immediately. The cubs were moved to standard meal times. The constant surveillance was reduced to normal supervisory levels. Most importantly, other younglings were educated about Kraix culture, the sharing traditions, the seasonal adaptations, the deep-rooted values of community care. The transformation was remarkable. Within days, the cubs had integrated seamlessly into regular activities. Other younglings, once they got over their initial nervousness, were fascinated by their new companions. Ukar became something of a legend among the smaller children, who discovered that having a large, strong friend meant nobody bothered them during play periods. Milsha's constant questions, once seen as potential threats to establish hunting patterns, were recognized for what they actually were: genuine curiosity. She became the go-to source for younglings trying to understand complex concepts, because she asked questions until she understood, then explained things in ways that made sense to other children. Oxven remained quiet, but his presence became a source of comfort. Younglings who were having difficult days would seek him out, knowing he'd sit with them without judgment or demands for explanation. The real vindication came 3 weeks into the trial period. Liam was supervising afternoon recreation when Quellaline approached, the small purple Quellan youngling who'd been crying every night. He was holding something, a datapad displaying a short video message. "Liam," Quellaline's translator conveyed nervousness. "I need to tell someone something about the cubs." Liam's heart sank. This was it, the incident that would derail everything. "Okay, what happened?" "They have been helping me," Quellaline said. "For weeks. Every night, they would bring me food and sit with me when I cried for my home. I did not tell anyone because I thought they would get in trouble for being kind." The datapad showed more security footage, angles and moments Tom hadn't found in his initial search. Weeks of quiet compassion. The cubs taking turns staying with Quellaline during his worst nights, bringing him not just food, but small objects they'd found that might comfort him. A smooth stone, a piece of soft fabric, a picture drawn by another youngling. "There are others," Quellaline continued. "Many others. The cubs helped all of us, the ones who were lonely or scared or hurt. They made this station feel less frightening. And I wanted someone to know, because they should not be watched like they are dangerous. They are the opposite of dangerous. Liam crouched down to Queliline's level. That's really brave of you to speak up. Thank you. Will they be in trouble? No, Liam said firmly. They're going to be recognized for exactly what they are. Heroes. The final week of the trial period arrived with a station-wide celebration. Not officially for the Cubs. Kelvox was too diplomatic for that. But everyone knew what it really meant. The cafeteria hosted an integration feast with traditional foods from dozens of worlds. Younglings from every species mingled freely, sharing meals and stories. Ukar, Milsha, and Oxven sat at a central table, surrounded by friends. Real friends, not frightened observers. They still took smaller portions than they probably needed, old habits from their home world, but now other younglings understood why and would gently encourage them to take more. Pixoth approached Liam during the celebration. Their antennae performing what he'd learned was their species' version of a satisfied gesture. The protocols have been permanently revised, they said. Station-wide implementation begins next month. Kelvox is recommending the new framework for adoption at other integration facilities. Good, Liam said. And the Cubs? Will be treated as what they are. Younglings? Remarkable ones, certainly, but younglings nonetheless. Across the cafeteria, Oxven was teaching a human child the Kraix method of sharing food, the careful portioning, the deliberate turns, the emphasis on making sure everyone received something. The human child was struggling with the concept, but trying earnestly. You know, Liam said, watching the scene, I think they're going to change this place, not by being what everyone feared, but by being exactly who they've always been. They already have, Pixoth replied. 3 months later, the cafeteria bore little resemblance to the anxious, segregated space it had been. Species mixed freely. The Cubs were indistinguishable from any other younglings except for their unfailing habit of checking that smaller children had eaten enough. When new younglings arrived, a group of Ixloth cubs whose species had a reputation for aggressive territoriality, there was initial concern. Another dangerous species, another opportunity for fear-based protocols. Liam volunteered to coordinate their integration. He spent the first day simply observing the Ixloth cubs, watching how they interacted, noting their behaviors and concerns. Then he sat down with them, much like he'd sat under a table with 3 scared Kraix cubs, and asked questions. What did they need? What scared them? What did they want from their time on the station? The answers were familiar. Safety, understanding, a chance to be seen as individuals rather than representatives of their species. I can work with that, Liam said. Across the cafeteria, Ukar noticed the new arrivals. He gathered Milsha and Oxven with a subtle gesture, and together they approached the Ixloth cubs' table. Not threatening, not overwhelming, just 3 younglings who understood what it meant to be feared, offering friendship to others walking the same path. Liam watched them go and smiled. The universe, he thought, was learning. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. And it was learning from the ones who'd always known the truth. That strength wasn't about claws or teeth or physical power. It was about choosing kindness when the world expected danger. It was about sharing what you had, even when you had little. It was about protecting the weak, not because you were strong, but because it was right. 3 small cubs had taught an entire station that lesson, and they'd done it 1 granola bar at a time.